What celebrity did bad things but everyone forgot what they did because they're famous? Vince Neil of Motley Crue drove drunk and killed one of his very good friends and gave the two people in the other car very bad injuries and brain damage. He also had other DUIs after this, but hey, everybody loves a good party song and now he has a famous liquor brand. Jimmy Superfly Snuka killed his girlfriend and got inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. Floyd Mayweather beats his wife with hands that are registered as lethal weapons in front of his children. But because he wins, nobody cares. Rick James kidnapped 2 women with his wife while on separate crack binges. R. Kelly married Aaliyah when she was 15 years old in the mid-90s, and yet it took like 2 decades for people to start boycotting him as a sexual predator. He was still making songs with Beyonce and Lady Gaga etc. for a long time. Vince Neil was driving drunk and caused a crash that killed his passenger. Ted Nugent shit his pants to dodge the draft and has a song called Jailbait which ends with him pleading with an officer not to arrest him and instead share a 13-year-old. Boy Georgie beat a guy with a metal chain after cuffing him to a radiator. Should make for an interesting sequence in his forthcoming biopic. Steven Tyler became the guardian for a 16-year-old he was dating when he was 25 so he could bring her on tour, knocked her up too. Piers Morgan was the editor of the Daily Mirror during the Iraq War, published photos that he knew were fake of American and British troops abusing Iraqi prisoners. He was fired but somehow managed to make a successful media career out of it. Here's a list I compiled earlier this year. Jimmy Page was 26 when he started calling 14-year-old Laurie Maddox's girlfriend Mick Jagger had a few rounds with Maddox around the same time, also of the Rolling Stones. Bill Wyman started dating 13-year-old Mandy Smith when he was 47. He got her mother's permission. Steven Tyler convinced the mother of 16-year-old Julia Holcomb to make him her legal guardian, then snorted blow from next to her hospital bed while she was having an abortion. David Bowie, the beloved, managed to get Laurie Maddox's virginity and got her to bring her 15-year-old friend along, in addition to many other underage girls. Edit. Apparently this one is hotly contested. I want to believe David was better than that, but I'm leaving it in with this caveat because I'm on mobile and can't prove one way or the other right now. Jerry Lee Lewis of course married his 13-year-old cousin. She still believed in Santa on their honeymoon. Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll himself, was routinely in trouble with underage girls, and even the fabled romance with Priscilla is a tale of sexual interference. She was 14 when they met. Chuck Berry was arrested for crossing state lines with a 14-year-old prostitute. He was also recording women in the washroom of the restaurant he owned. Courtney Love says she gave Ted Nugent a blowjob when she was 12. He also adopted a 17-year-old so he could bang her without getting charged with kidnapping. He even wrote a song about avoiding pedophilia charges. Anthony Kiedis, Red Hot Chili Peppers, wrote songs about it too. Catholic schoolgirls rule is about his hooking up with a 14-year-old at 23. Iggy Pop also wrote songs about sleeping with 13-year-olds too. Check out the lyrics to Look Away. Marvin Gaye knocked up his wife's 15-year-old niece. Don Henley, the Eagles, was charged after paramedics found him with 2 naked girls, aged 15 and 16. Edits. Everything below here has been appended thanks to the subthreads. Thanks to the users who contributed. Victor Silva, director, raped a 13-year-old boy while he was directing a movie the kid was in. A movie which was nominated for a few awards in fact. Had a bunch of child porn too. Went to jail and almost as soon as he gets out he starts working on powder. John Hamm led a fraternity pledge around the house by a claw hammer around his testicles while other frat members beat him so hard his spine was fractured and he nearly lost a kidney. Hamm later referred to it as a bummer of a thing that happened. He'd hate this, not just because he hurt someone, but because it was so humiliating, and shows an utter disregard for other people. Kurt Cobain's mother regularly goes on talk shows and interviews where she talks about how supportive she was of Kurt and how she knew how famous he would become from the moment she heard his music. Yup, it's the same mom that abused Kurt and kicked him out multiple times, making him live at his grandparents, friends and sometimes, not confirmed, sleep under a bridge. NBA Hall of Famer Karl Malone raped a 12-13-year-old. Edit. Better choice of words. Cole Malone got a 13-year-old pregnant and refused to take care of that child. George Wallace, the infamous pro-segregation governor of Alabama in the 60s, did not inform his wife that her doctor diagnosed her with cancer. Doctors during this time often told patients' relatives of their cancer diagnosis instead of the patient, especially if the patient was female. The reason was that she was running for governor as a surrogate for him since he had reached his term limits, and he thought that the diagnosis would negatively affect her chances of winning. She ended up finding out about it 4 years later during a visit to a gynecologist, but unfortunately the cancer had progressed to the point that she died from it 3 years after learning that she had cancer and that her husband had known about it. He ended up successfully getting the term limits repealed and went on to serve a few more terms as governor. People forget about this, I'm assuming, because of all of the other shitty things he did. Edit. Her name was Laleen Wallace, for those interested. Salman Khan, a very famous Indian actor. Edit. It's not the guy from Khan Academy. He killed someone by driving his car over them. I forget the specifics, but he drove his car over one or more people who were sleeping on the side of the road, killing at least one of them. He carried on with his acting career and on Indian TV because he is famous. Edit. Since this gained so much, here are some articles from the incident. Ran over 4 people, killing one of them. He was later found guilty 13 years after the incident, then appealed and was cleared and charges quashed due to whoever gave me gold. Jared Leto's been accused of rape by half a dozen 13-15-year-old girls. Johnny Cash walked out on his wife and kids saying that his career was more important to him than they were, then went on to eventually settle down with June Carter and start a whole new family while still ignoring the kids he already had. This may not be the best place for but the Watergate scandal was about a rigged election, not just a piddling cover-up of a minor crime. The story is usually told from the viewpoint of the investigation, so facts are revealed in the order in which they came to light, not the order in which they happened, which makes it easy to forget the fucked up nature of the actual crimes. The break-in that got busted was a minor mission in the scheme to rig the 1972 Democratic primary. In fact, it's been estimated to be about the 6th time they had broken into the DNC offices. The goal of that particular break-in was to repair a bugging device that had been placed at a previous beacon and had stopped working. The creep had gone so far as to plant Nixon loyalists in the DNC. The objective was to discredit Ed Muskie, the early Democratic frontrunner who was destroying Nixon in the polls. Nixon wanted to run against McGovern, a far-left fringe Democratic who was essentially unelectable. Muskie's campaign limo driver was an ex-implantant who was leaking intel from overheard conversations. Other staff reproduced confidential documents and handed them over to the White House. This was electoral fraud on a wholesale level. He got busted for a cover-up related to a minor break-in, but in fact a very real, massive conspiracy was in wide operation that gets more or less glossed over in the retelling. Steven Tyler was a serial rapist in the 70s and 80s. Now he's an old woman. Every time something like this is posted, no one cares about my comment on how Sean Kingston, the American Jamaican rapper, has sexually assaulted multiple women near where I live, and he's gotten away with it every time by threatening legal action. If anyone actually gives a shit, I can link proof from a girl explaining what happened to her, but I will censor some things for her sake. Basically he's doing rap shows and then Bill Cosbying girls in the area, or you can just look up on Google Sean Kingston sexual assault and many hits will come up. Fuck you Sean Kingston, your music's dog shit. Edit. I can't post the proof I was talking about without making a whole different post cause it's screenshots of the FB status they made, not sure how, but this loser has been implicated in things like this as far back as 2010. The incident I'm talking about happened 2 years ago in BC, Canada. Reddit 2. Here is the account I was talking about involving Sean Kingston. The person just took his name out, but I remember it was about him and I've removed identifying things so they may stay anonymous. Thank you so much to whoever gave me my first gold and to the people who upvoted this comment, and again fuck you Sean Kingston. Drake seems to be ignored for grooming a young underage fan, at age 14, into being his girlfriend until she recently turned 18 this year, and now he's even, supposedly, doing it to the young actress. Gwyneth Paltrow's a con artist and manages a MLM, as well as recommending women treat their illness by putting rocks up their vagina and steaming their privates, causing harm to people. You can say she's an idiot or just that she's a sociopath that loves making money off hurting other people. In my country there is a TV host that killed several people in a car accident. Twice. It was his fault both times. You can still see him on TV. Basically every rock star from earlier than the mid-80s has been confirmed to have had fucked a minor or two. Dozen. Just read up on any of them, they are all pretty fucking terrible. There's a soccer player in Brazil who killed his wife, quartered her body and gave it to dogs eat, to make it harder to police found out. He went to jail for a few years and now he is paying again and making tons of money again like nothing happened. Edit. Okay, he is not making a ton of money. What I meant is that he's probably gonna have a pretty comfortable life and have his car back. Also the woman wasn't his wife, it was his mistress, but they have a children together and still, she was a person. His name is Bruno Fernandes de Souza.